Pilots make radio calls all the time, travel over wide open spaces, and place faith in the big sky theory for separation. But every now and then, two aircraft manage to find themselves in the same spot at the same time. In this episode, I'm going to examine a bunch of incidents and one accident where this scenario did or almost did play out, and what you can do to help mitigate the risks based on the findings. I'm going to discuss all this and more coming right up. So strap in and let's get into it.
Standby star 9000, 1013, Kilo 25. Coordinating aileron and rudder, bank, balance, bank pressure rolling at 30 degrees. That's 30 degrees there. Left runway 29 1231.
G'day everyone and welcome to episode 128 of the Flight Training Australia podcast. From Adelaide to Jabiru, Derby down to Devonport and everywhere in between, this is the podcast all about flight training and flying in Australia and beyond. My name's Trent Robertson, I'm your host. G'day, how you going? Thank you to everyone who has completed the online survey which I've posted with already some fascinating and concerning responses. If you don't know what I'm talking about, on July 1 and 2, Strike Aviation is presenting the 2024 Aviation Industry Open Forum with the theme Creating Better Pilots. And I released a survey, we released a survey, but I posted on my socials based around the four key principles that we're going to be focusing on, being the system of delivery, the syllabus, delivery itself, and the assessment processes during pilot training. So we're going to be analysing all these key components with a prime focus on commercial pilot training, but obviously it'll capture anything leading up to that as well. And we invite you to submit your thoughts on where you feel the industry is doing well, where it can be improved, and raise the standards of pilot training. There are a few things I want to be clear about though, just with this process. This is about key foundation training standards, general knowledge, general handling, radio calls, how to be a commercial pilot. It's not about why aren't flight schools doing the job that charter operators and airline operators do. The purpose of line training, as I've spoken about many times before, is about teaching the job, teaching the company procedures and that sort of thing. What I am talking about here with the drop in performance and standards is primarily focused on a commercial pilot coming up and not being able to fly straight level and level off an aeroplane properly, perform a crosswind landing, make basic radio calls, submit a flight plan, things like this, all stuff that should 100% be covered off in basic PPL training, let alone commercial training. And really trying to get to the bottom of why are we seeing this? Why are these problems coming up? So it's not a witch hunt. We're not here to point fingers. We're not here to blame anyone. Never get anywhere doing that. It's all about just gathering the data, listening to the voice of industry to confirm our theories and our ideas, and we'll all go towards being presented and tabulated as part of the presentation and the forum that is coming up on July 1 and 2 in Caboolture in Queensland. So if you are a head of operations, a head of flying ops, who's HOFOs, instructors, check-in trainers, student pilots, anyone, we would love to hear from you. Jump online, uprtconference.com, and there's a link up the top there for the survey, have-your-say, but the link is on there. It'll also obviously be in the episode description as well, and it is completely anonymous. So don't sensationalize, don't, there's no need for exaggerations or anything else. Just say it how it is. And we would dearly love to have that input and feedback and help us to really understand what's going on and, like I said, confirm or deny our thoughts and feelings on things based on all the other feedback that we've had as well. So please do that, and thank you very much. I will also be launching another survey which is specifically aimed at instructors, and that will be coming out this week as well. So keep an eye out on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. There'll be an announcement there or a little video or something, and the link for that one as well. Again, I would dearly love your honest feedback on that as well. So hinging on that, the next few weeks, I'm going to be focusing on various areas of flight training, notable deficiencies, and interviews with people to help build knowledge, awareness, and focus on some of these key areas, which, well, let's face it, that's what this podcast is all about, isn't it? And see and avoid is 100% one of those things. And it usually pops up at some point during pilot training, that particular term. And even more so now, it's evolving into see, hear, and avoid. But I want to talk about what it actually all means, and is it an effective strategy and something that we should be using and listening to, following as good solid advice. So before we do that, I want to just have a look at a few incidents that have happened over the last few years. One very recent in the ATSB website and reporting. And if you're not on the ATSB channel and that sort of thing, definitely worthwhile doing on YouTube. They are starting to now put out some really good little video summaries of some of the latest reports with animations, playbacks, and that sort of stuff, depending on the stage of the report it's at. And if you're not so much into reading accident reports online, this is a really good way to go. And they've also got a really good Facebook page as well, which I recommend following as well. So keep you up to date on all this sort of stuff. All right. So the first one I want to just introduce and talk about is an accident. An incident which happened fairly recently, 6th of June, 2023. And you may well have seen this one recently online on Facebook. It happened at Mildure Airport. 2 aircraft involved. And I'm just going to summarize everything. I'll link all these accident and incident reports in the episode description again, so you can refer to them yourself and have a good read. But a Piper Cherokee conducting solo private flight to Broken Hill, and a Qantas Link Dash 8, which was a scheduled service from Mildure to Sydney. Now, if you're not really sure of the runway layout, imagine an L shape with the Cherokee lined up on the bottom of the L, and runway 36, sort of a back to front upside down L, isn't it? But Dash 8 was on runway 209, so way out to the left, and then down the bottom right hand corner facing north is the Cherokee. So what happened? Well, basically a bunch of radio calls took place, but essentially everyone made really what was the required calls, which was the initial taxi call. The Cherokee incorrectly, however, identified that they were on runway 35 rather than 36. Dash 8, they were receiving pre-departure information from air traffic control with the CTAF frequency turned down, so running off a 2Com radio system here, and missed parts of the Cherokee's calls due to overtransmission. So going through the report, the Dash 8 crew did not believe that the Cherokee was actually at Mildure due to the incorrect runway identification, and came to the conclusion that it was possible they were at the nearby Wentworth Airport using the same frequency. The Cherokee pilot assumed the Dash 8 would still be backtracking on the runway, and they had plenty of time to roll. Now, the interesting thing with this is, if we make a typical CTAF radio call, we would normally go Mildure traffic, yada, 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 Mildure traffic. And there's a very specific reason we do that, because quite often pilots start talking, clip the front of the radio call, or if they do it perfectly, I might be busy doing something else. You make your Mildure call, for lack of a better airport, and I hear Dura, but I'd missed the first bit. I might not quite have picked up that you're talking. So I'll start listening to what you're saying, and then I'll be listening for the Mildure bit at the end. I go, right, yeah, okay, that's a call that I need to process and deal with. So it's really, really important that we follow that correct terminology and say the airport name twice. It can really save a lot of confusion. I don't know what the radio call specifically was. I don't think there was any radio calls recorded in this particular incident. So it's not known whether the prop terminology was used, but I'm surprised the Dash 8 crew were so confused, given a runway so close, and surely there would have been a Mildure somewhere in the Cherokee's radio calls that should have been enough to figure out that, yeah, right, they're down the other end and they are indeed on an intersecting path. So despite all that, both aircraft began their takeoff rolls towards the intersection, and the Dash 8 passed about 600 metres in front of the Cherokee. So very nearly a mid-runway intersection collision. The next incident, which is very, very similar to this, which I just want to touch on very quickly, happened at Geraldton. And this was in March this year, 2024, involving a Metro and a Bonanza. And very much the same thing. The Bonanza was backtracking runway 14, while the crew of the Metro backtracked runway 03. Both aircraft completely aware of each other and were, however, encountering communication difficulties with a third aircraft relaying the calls. And this is potentially between obstacles between the two aircraft. The Bonanza made a radio call, commenced their takeoff roll on runway 14, while the Metro commenced their takeoff on 03. The Bonanza observed the Metro on the crossing runway and delayed rotation to pass behind the aircraft. So almost identical scenario for slightly different reasons as the Mildure incident. All right. Wellcamp, 21 October 2021. This was involving a King Air and a Saab 340, and you may remember this one being reported as well. This one wasn't so much a lack of radio calls, but incorrect radio calls and incorrect position information. So Brisbane Air Traffic Controller provided traffic information to both aircraft separately before leaving controlled airspace. Now, this is an IFR common practice that when you're in controlled airspace, you'll obviously be getting traffic information with each other. But when we go into outside controlled airspace, we're a little bit on our own. We may have backup radar services with Melbourne or Brisbane Centre, but there's not necessarily an obligation on those controllers to give us anything. So both aircraft made several radio calls on the CTAF to organise their separation. So as the aircraft came in, the King Air then conducted a 180-degree left-hand turn on the active side of the crossing of the circuit, crossing in front of the Saab. It was reported then that separation reduced to about 300 feet vertically and 1,000 metres horizontally. TCAS alerts went off and actions were taken. The findings, though, is where this is all very interesting. So in the findings, it turned out that everyone was communicating well, but ineffectively, in that the Saab crew actually misreported their position. They said they were somewhere else, hence the King Air manoeuvred thinking that they were clear to do so. Had they been known to do that, wouldn't have done it, and the conflict wouldn't have happened. So this really just shows that even when making perfect radio calls, if you don't put yourself in the right spot, I can't say, and I've mentioned this so many times, but I can't say how many times I've had pilots say that they were to the east when they were to the west, or really, no, we're not to the west, we're to the southwest, or we're to the south. And you can't generalize on this sort of thing, because if you want to look out, if you tell me you're to the southwest, I'm going to look to the southwest. And that changes my field of view by not looking 30 degrees left or 30 right or even 60 degrees right. If you tell me you're to the west and I should be looking to the southwest, I'm looking in the wrong spot. My eyes aren't going to be able to pick up movement, assuming how far and close you are away, in a 60 to 90 degree arc. All right. It's just silly. It's not going to be happening. So you need to be absolutely sure of your positioning and your position reporting where you really are. All right, let's move on to the next one. And this one, unfortunately, did not end well and is a mid-air collision. Now, this one was involving a Piper Seminole. It was leaving Mangalore Airport doing a IFR flight test. So it had a student applicant and a flight examiner on board. inbound into Mangalore Airport was a beach travel air, and it was about 8 kilometres south of the airport at the time. Now, this happened back at 2020, and there is it's not really good, is it? Because it's just horrible, but a very well presented video highlighting all the bits and pieces done by the ATSB. So once you finish listening to this and you're in a spot where you can watch it, definitely recommend having a look at it, as it will really help you and leave you a little bit gobsmacked, I'm sure, as to what happened and how it even did happen. And I'm going to go into a bit more detail on this report findings. All right, so both aircraft were operating IFR and in non-controlled airspace. So it was around lunchtime in February 2020. Like I said, a beach travel air was registration Alpha Echo Mike, and a Piper Seminole Juliet Quebec Foxtrot collided mid-air approximately 8 kilometres south of Mangalore Airport in Victoria. The travel air was approaching Mangalore Airport from the south on descent to conduct a practice instrument approach, while the Seminole was southbound on climb from Mangalore to Essendon Airport, returning. Both aircraft were operating under the IFR in non-controlled airspace. The pilots of each aircraft had been provided with with traffic information about each other prior to the collision in accordance with procedures. Both aircraft were fitted with dual radios, and other pilots monitoring the common traffic frequency or advisory frequency, or the CTAF, associated Mangalore Airport reported hearing pilots from both aircraft broadcast, but had no recollection of them speaking directly to each other. The two aircraft subsequently collided with no evasive manoeuvring identified in the recorded flight data, and sadly all 4 pilots were fatally injured and both aircraft were destroyed. Now, this is a really interesting accident report to go through, because, again, this is something I see time and time again, and definitely this lack of comprehension of being able to identify threats and where aircraft are coming from and decide whether they are someone that needs to be dealt with or not is finding its way right through up into pilots starting their type ratings and training into an airline environment. So let's have a look at the information here. So both pilots were provided with traffic information about the other. Now, if we have a look at that, one aircraft was getting ready to depart. The other one was a reasonable way south and inbound. So I can tell you from observing pilots, and not obviously my own mental practices when this sort of thing happens, is that you tend to dismiss things as, yep, cool, copied, but I'll deal with that later. Both aircraft had 2 radios, so there's nothing stopping one being on center and the other on CTAF and being able to talk to each other. Now, when the aircraft were notified of each other, if it wasn't appropriate to be doing it right at that time because they were departing, if I was either aircraft, I would want to know where they were going. Are they tracking directly to the field? Are they tracking further out to an instrument approach waypoint, or where they're going to be? So I can then fully determine, are they a conflict or not? And if they are, well, when you're in outside controlled airspace, the expectation whilst you're given traffic is that you will sort yourselves out. You'll clear yourselves to, I'll ask another pilot, would you mind leveling off at 5,000 feet? I won't climb above 4,000 feet until we can verify that we're now ahead and behind each other, and then we can continue our climbs and descents accordingly. Something like that. The significance that no record of other aircraft listening to CTAF heard either aircraft communicate directly with each other is really, really concerning and interesting at the same time. It's something I have seen plenty of times, that people have been busy doing what they're doing and dismissed aircraft, assumed or imagined that the other aircraft's trajectory is not in conflict with their own, and have had what would have been our own very close near-miss situation because they incorrectly thought that they were not in each other's way. So really important things here. And for a VFR point of view, even more so, flying with a lot of you when you come up here to the territory, there are some very good position reports and radio calls made. The problem is you have no idea where they are and where they're talking about. And what do you then tend to do? You just dismiss it. You ignore it. You go, well, maybe it's not significant. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully they're not anywhere near me. The next minute I'll point out the window and show you an aeroplane crossing underneath us or, in near proximity. It may not be a near miss. I'm not being over dramatic. My point is that the concept of see, hear, and avoid is a tool, but just because you made a call doesn't mean it was heard. Even if it was heard, it doesn't mean it was processed correctly. Just because it was made doesn't mean you made it correctly either. We need to be looking out. We need to be listening out. We need to be careful and think our radio calls through. We all know that press to talk is the press to brain dump button. And sometimes the brain goes to mush, especially when you're under a little bit of pressure. And what comes out is certainly not what was rehearsed or intended. Okay, so part of this process here is, well, the moral of the story really is I want you all to be thinking about what it is we're saying, why we're talking. And a lot of this comes down to the required radio calls. And I'll be honest, I don't really care what the ARP says. There is a time and a place. We used to be a taxi call and an inbound call. And now the rules are basically saying, as required for safety. Well, as far as I'm concerned, why would you not make an inbound call? It just doesn't hurt. And then if there's other aircraft there, you want to make sure that you get a call. So if you make a radio call and no one responds, keep an eye on them. But otherwise, feel free to just say, whatever, Alpha Bravo Charlie, just confirm you copied my radio call. And if they don't, then you can repeat it and now you've established communications. Sometimes we're busy and we might generally miss things, especially if it's an instructional environment. Got to be very, very careful. Got to be always listening as instructors, not talking too much at the wrong time so that we miss things like that. And really making radio calls when they're required and other times be quiet so that we're not blocking up CTAFs, blocking up Melbourne Centre frequencies, Brisbane Centre, all that sort of stuff. Use correct phraseology, be accurate with your position reports. Don't round off 90 degrees to just the north, south, east, west. Be southeast, be south, southeast, whatever it is, because that is going to give people the best chance of looking in the correct location to find you and separate from you. If you're outside controlled airspace and Melbourne Centre, Brisbane Centre give you traffic, understand that is all they are doing. They are notifying you of each other, but they are not controlling you. They can't, even if they might have radar information. Everyone's not necessarily identified and they don't have permission. They can give suggestions, and obviously if they see a potential conflict, they can point it out, but they're not necessarily always looking and able to provide that. So it is up to us as pilots to ensure that we absolutely do that. It is a pilot responsibility to maintain separation on the ground, in the air, VMC, IMC, doesn't matter. If you have transponders, turn them on. It doesn't matter whether you feel that you're in a transponder area or not. Most aircraft now, these days, have some form of ATSB, ADSB, not ATSB, function that can detect other aircraft. It may display as traffic. It might come up on our Oz runways. I have planned iPads and things. So put the code in, put it on out so it's working and functional. You never know how it may be helping someone else figure out where you are and use that information as well for their planning purposes of when they're trying to come in. All right, guys, I hope that all helps. Thank you very much for listening. As I said, the full reports for those reference accidents and incidents are in the episode description. I strongly recommend you go and have a bit of a read of those later on. Check them out, and also for the video summary of the accident as well. It'll hopefully really change your thought process, whether you're VFR or IFR, it doesn't matter, on when you do and don't make radio calls, and establish contact with each other to confirm who's doing what. Never just dismiss or ignore another radio call. All right, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, everybody, thank you for listening. It's been another busy week, and I look forward to talking to you next weekend. In the meantime, please keep an eye out for the survey. I'll put the original survey out as well, and for instructors, there'll be a special one for you as well. And I really look forward to hearing all that so I can share it with Paul and the team, ready for the forum in July there, yeah. And don't forget, if you're a private pilot, commercial airline pilot, and you're into stalls, spins, UPRT, there's no better person than the man himself, Rich Stoll. He will be coming on the 29th of June at Caboolture Air Club. $99 a ticket. Seriously, you cannot beat it. And $299 for the forum, 2 days. At the moment, it is fully funded privately, and we are looking for sponsorship and support to put this on. And everyone is busy. Believe me, I am busy, but I am making the time for this because it is so important. And as industry, we need to get together. As pilots, we need to get together. There's always room for learning, and I'd really love it if everyone can get on board and support these 2 events. All right, until next time, blue skies, and remember the golden rule: aviate, navigate, communicate effectively. Cheers, everyone.